Chapter 1. The Last Transmission. The distress signal pulsed through the void, a desperate plea from a dying world. Captain Arya Vance, commander of the Earthship Odyssey, stared at the flickering holographic display, her brow furrowed in concentration. The message, garbled and fragmented, repeated on a loop. To any surviving colonies, our planet is lost. We need. Arya leaned forward, her fingers flying across the console as she attempted to clean up the signal. Static hissed and popped, threatening to drown out the sender's voice. Evacuation. Supplies running low. Please, if anyone is out there. The transmission cut off abruptly, leaving an eerie silence in its wake. Arya sat back in her chair, her mind racing. A lost planet. A civilization on the brink of collapse. It was the kind of mission the Odyssey had been built for, the reason she had joined the Earth Defense Fleet in the first place. She turned to her first officer, Lieutenant Zara Wren, who had been listening intently beside her. Zara, assemble the senior staff. We need to analyze this signal and determine its origin. Zara nodded, her green eyes gleaming with determination. Right away, Captain. As the bridge crew hurried to their stations, Arya couldn't shake the feeling that this mission would be unlike any they had faced before. The urgency in the sender's voice, the desperation, it spoke of a catastrophe beyond imagining. She pushed herself out of her chair, her boots echoing on the polished deck as she strode towards the observation window. Beyond the reinforced glass, the stars glittered like diamonds against the velvet backdrop of space. Somewhere out there, a world was dying, its inhabitants crying out for help. And the Odyssey would answer that call, no matter the cost. Arya's jaw tightened as she watched the universe unfold before her. They were humanity's last hope, the only ship capable of traversing the vast distances between the stars. As she turned back to face her crew, Arya knew that the fate of an entire species rested on their shoulders. It was a burden she had sworn to bear, a responsibility she would never shirk. Helm, set a course for the signal's origin, she commanded, her voice steady and sure. We have a planet to save. The Odyssey surged forward, its engines flaring to life as it plunged into the unknown. And somewhere in the depths of space, a lost world waited, its final hope hurtling towards it through the endless night. Chapter 2. Into the Unknown. The Odyssey tore through the fabric of space, its sleek hull cutting a path through the darkness. In the ship's conference room, Captain Arya Vance stood before her senior staff, her eyes blazing with intensity. What do we know about the planet? She asked, her gaze sweeping over the assembled officers. Lieutenant Commander Kai Solaris, the ship's science officer, stepped forward. Not much, Captain. The signal originated from a system on the edge of known space. Our databases have no record of any inhabited worlds in that region. Arya nodded, her lips pressed into a thin line. So, we're flying blind. Zara Wren, the first officer, spoke up. Captain, we should approach with caution. If this planet is truly lost, there's no telling what we might find. Agreed, Arya said, but we can't abandon them. If there's even a chance we can help, we have to try. The room fell silent, the weight of their mission settling over them like a shroud. Arya looked at each of her officers in turn, seeing the determination etched on their faces. All right, people, let's do this. Kai, I want you to keep analyzing that signal. Look for any clues that might tell us what we're walking into. Zara, work with engineering to make sure the Odyssey is ready for anything. I have a feeling we're going to need every ounce of power she's got. As the staff filed out of the room, Arya lingered, staring out at the stars streaking past the viewport. She couldn't shake the feeling that they were racing towards something vast and unknowable, a mystery that could swallow them whole. But she had made a promise, to herself and to the lost souls crying out across the cosmos. She would not abandon them, not while there was still hope. The Odyssey plunged deeper into uncharted space, its crew ready to face whatever lay ahead. In the shadows of the unknown, a lost world waited, its fate hanging in the balance. Days turned into weeks as the ship journeyed on, the vastness of space pressing in on all sides. The crew grew restless, the monotony of their routine broken only by the occasional flicker of the distress signal, a ghostly reminder of their purpose. Arya spent long hours in her quarters, poring over the scant data they had managed to glean from the transmission. The planet's name, its location, the nature of the catastrophe that had befallen it. all remained shrouded in mystery. But she would not give up. The lost world called to her, its plea for help echoing in her dreams. She would find a way to save them, no matter the cost. As the Odyssey ventured into the unknown, the weight of their mission grew heavier with each passing day. They were humanity's last hope, the only light in a universe of darkness. And in the depths of space, a lost planet waited, its fate intertwined with the destiny of the brave souls who dared to answer its call. Chapter 3. The Beacon in the Void. The Odyssey emerged from the inky blackness of space, the distant stars casting an eerie glow upon its hull. On the bridge, Captain Arya Vance leaned forward in her chair, her eyes fixed on the view screen. "Status report," she called out, her voice taut with anticipation. "We've entered the system, Captain," Lieutenant Commander Kai Solaris replied, his fingers dancing across the science station's console. "Sensors are picking up a single planet orbiting the star." Arya's heart raced as she stared at the image before her. The planet was a mottled sphere of blues and greens, its surface obscured by swirling clouds. It looked hauntingly familiar, an echo of Earth lost to the depths of space. "Any signs of life?" she asked, almost afraid to hear the answer. Kai shook his head, his expression grim. "Negative, Captain. The planet appears to be in the final stages of ecological collapse. I'm detecting massive temperature fluctuations, widespread desertification, and a nearly depleted ozone layer." Arya felt a wave of despair wash over her. They had come so far, only to find a world on the brink of oblivion. But she refused to give up hope, not while there was still a chance to make a difference. "What about the distress signal?" she pressed on, her voice steady despite the turmoil raging inside her. Zara Wren, the first officer, spoke up from her position beside Arya. "It's still broadcasting, Captain, but the signal is weak and fragmented. It's as if—" She paused, her brow furrowed in concentration. "It's as if the sender is running out of time." Arya nodded, her jaw clenched with determination. "Then we don't have a moment to lose. Helm, bring us into orbit. Kai, keep scanning for any signs of survivors. Zara, assemble an away team. We're going down to the surface." The bridge erupted into a flurry of activity as the crew rushed to carry out their orders. Arya stood at the center of it all, a beacon of hope amidst the chaos. As the Odyssey slipped into orbit around the dying world, Arya couldn't shake the feeling that they were standing on the precipice of something momentous. The fate of an entire species hung in the balance, and the weight of that responsibility settled heavily upon her shoulders. But she would not falter. Not when so much was at stake. The lost planet had called out to them, a desperate plea for salvation echoing across the stars. And Arya would answer that call, no matter the dangers that lay ahead. The away team gathered in the transporter room, their faces etched with a mixture of fear and resolve. Arya stood at the front, her eyes blazing with intensity. "We don't know what we'll find down there," she said, her voice ringing out in the stillness. "But we do know this. We are the last hope for this lost world. We are the beacon in the void, the light that will guide them back from the brink of oblivion." She paused, letting her words sink in. "So let us go forth with courage and compassion, and let us show the universe that even in the darkest of times, there is still hope to be found." With a nod to the transporter chief, Arya stepped onto the platform, her team close behind. As the shimmering energy engulfed them, she closed her eyes, steeling herself for whatever lay ahead. The lost planet awaited them, its secrets and sorrows hidden beneath the veil of its dying skies. And Arya would not rest until she had unraveled them all and brought hope to a world on the edge of oblivion. Chapter 4. The Surface of Sorrow. The away team materialized on the planet's surface, the swirling energy of the transporter beam dissipating around them. Captain Arya Vance blinked, her eyes adjusting to the dim, hazy light that filtered through the thick atmosphere. The landscape before them was a bleak and desolate sight, a far cry from the vibrant blues and greens they had seen from orbit. The ground was a barren expanse of cracked, parched earth, stretching out as far as the eye could see. The air was heavy and oppressive, laden with the acrid stench of decay. In the distance, the skeletal remains of once mighty trees reached towards the sky, their branches bare and twisted. "My God," Zara whispered, her voice barely audible over the eerie silence that engulfed them. "What happened here?" Arya shook her head, her heart heavy with sorrow. I don't know, but we're going to find out. She turned to the team, her expression resolute. Spread out and search for any signs of life. Keep your comms open and report back if you find anything. As the team dispersed, Arya moved forward, her boots crunching against the brittle ground. She scanned the horizon, searching for any indication of the distress signal's origin. But there was nothing, only the endless expanse of a world on the brink of collapse. Suddenly, a faint glimmer caught her eye. She squinted, trying to make out the source of the light. As she drew closer, she realized it was a small, metallic object half buried in the dirt. She knelt down, brushing away the dust and debris to reveal a small, circular device. Captain! Zara's voice crackled over the comm. We found something. You need to see this. Arya stood, the device clutched tightly in her hand. On my way. She hurried towards Zara's location, her heart pounding in her chest. As she crested a small rise, she froze, her eyes widening in disbelief. Before her lay the ruins of a once great city, its towering spires and sprawling streets reduced to rubble. The remnants of advanced technology lay scattered amidst the debris, a testament to the civilization that had once thrived here. But it was the bodies that truly stole Arya's breath away. They lay strewn across the ground, their forms twisted and contorted in agony. Some were still intact, their lifeless eyes staring up at the hazy sky, while others had been reduced to little more than bones and dust. There are thousands of them, Zara said, her voice trembling with emotion. Men, women, children, an entire civilization wiped out. Arya closed her eyes, the weight of the tragedy pressing down upon her. She had seen death before, but never on this scale, never with such devastating finality. Captain, Kai called out, his voice tight with urgency. I've analyzed the device you found. It's some kind of data storage unit, and it's still active. Arya nodded, her jaw clenched with determination. Then let's find out what it has to say. She connected the device to her suit's interface, and a holographic display sprang to life before her. The image was grainy and distorted, but Arya could make out the face of a humanoid figure, its features etched with desperation and fear. To anyone who receives this message, the figure spoke, its voice crackling with static. I am the last of my kind, the sole survivor of a once great civilization. Our world is dying, and we have no hope of saving it. But perhaps in our final moments, we can ensure that our story is not forgotten. Arya felt a chill run down her spine as she listened to the figure's tale of a world consumed by greed and hubris, of a society that had squandered its resources and poisoned its own planet in the pursuit of power and wealth. The parallels to Earth's own history were all too clear, and the realization left her shaken to her core. As the message came to an end, the figure's eyes locked onto Arya's, and she felt a surge of emotion wash over her. Please, the figure pleaded, its voice barely a whisper. Do not let our fate become your own. Learn from our mistakes and cherish the world you have been given, for in the end, it is all we have. The hologram faded, leaving Arya and her team standing in the ruins of a lost civilization, the weight of its final message hanging heavy in the air. Arya took a deep breath, her eyes filled with a newfound resolve. We will not forget, she said, her voice ringing out across the desolate landscape. We will carry your story with us, and we will fight to ensure that your sacrifice was not in vain. She turned to her team, her expression fierce with determination. Let's get back to the Odyssey. We have work to do. As they made their way back to the beam-out point, Arya couldn't shake the feeling that this was only the beginning. The lost planet had given them a warning, a glimpse into a future that could all too easily become their own. But it had also given them hope, a chance to forge a different path. And Arya would not rest until that path was secured, until the echoes of Oblivion were silenced once and for all. Chapter 5, The Last Survivor. As the away team materialized back on the Odyssey, the weight of their discovery hung heavy in the air. Captain Arya Vance clutched the small, metallic device tightly in her hand, the final message of a lost civilization etched into her memory. The bridge was silent as Arya strode in, her expression a mix of determination and sorrow. She handed the device to Kai, the ship's chief science officer. Analyze this data. I want to know everything we can about the civilization that created it. Kai nodded solemnly, taking the device and heading to the science lab. Arya turned to face her crew, her eyes scanning the room. "We have witnessed a tragedy beyond imagining," she said, her voice steady despite the emotion that threatened to overwhelm her. "But we cannot let their sacrifice be in vain. We must learn from their mistakes and fight to ensure that our own world does not suffer the same fate." The crew nodded in agreement, their faces etched with the same resolve that burned in Arya's heart. She took a deep breath, steeling herself for the task ahead. "Set a course for Earth. We must report our findings to Starfleet Command and begin the work of securing a better future for humanity." As the Odyssey leaped into warp, Arya retreated to her ready room, the weight of responsibility heavy on her shoulders. She sat at her desk, staring out at the stars that streaked past the viewport, lost in thought. The door chimed, and Arya called out, "Enter." Zara stepped into the room, her expression thoughtful. "Captain, I've been thinking about the message we received from the last survivor. The parallels to Earth's history are striking." Arya nodded, gesturing for Zara to take a seat. "I know. It's a sobering reminder of how easily we can lose our way." "But it's also a chance," Zara said, leaning forward, "a chance to learn from their mistakes and chart a different course. We have the power to change our future, Captain, to build a world that values life and cherishes the resources we have been given." Arya smiled, the first genuine smile she had managed since they had set foot on the lost planet. "You're right, Zara. We have been given a gift, a warning from the past that can guide us towards a brighter tomorrow." She stood, her resolve stronger than ever. "And we will not waste it. We will carry the story of the lost planet with us, and we will fight to ensure that their legacy endures." Together, Arya and Zara left the ready room, ready to face the challenges that lay ahead. They knew that the road would not be easy, that there would be obstacles and setbacks along the way. But they also knew that they were not alone. They had each other, and they had the memory of a lost civilization to guide them. And with that knowledge, they would press forward, determined to secure a future worth fighting for. As the Odyssey raced towards Earth, the echoes of Oblivion grew fainter, replaced by the growing hope of a new dawn. The lost planet had given them a chance, and they would not let it slip away. They would honor the sacrifices of the past and build a better tomorrow, one step at a time. Chapter 6. A New Dawn. As the Odyssey hurtled through the void of space, the weight of the lost planet's message seemed to permeate every corner of the ship. Captain Arya Vance sat in her ready room, poring over the data that Kai had extracted from the metallic device. The more she learned about the lost civilization, the more she saw the parallels to Earth's own history. A chime at the door interrupted her thoughts. "Enter," she called out, straightening in her chair. Commander Zara stepped into the room, a determined look on her face. "Captain, I've been thinking about our next steps. We need to do more than just report our findings to Starfleet Command. We need to take action." Arya nodded, a smile tugging at the corners of her mouth. "I couldn't agree more, Zara. We have a responsibility to ensure that the lost planet's sacrifice was not in vain. We must start a movement, a call to action, that will inspire humanity to change course before it's too late." Zara's eyes sparkled with excitement. "Exactly. We can use the lost planet's story as a cautionary tale, a reminder of what happens when we let greed and hubris guide our actions. But we can also use it as a source of hope, a beacon that shows us the way forward." Arya stood, her resolve stronger than ever. "Then, let's get to work. We'll start by sharing the lost planet's message with the crew. We'll encourage them to spread the word, to share the story with their loved ones back on Earth. And when we arrive at Starfleet Command, we'll present our findings and our plan for a better future." The two women left the ready room, their steps purposeful as they strode onto the bridge. The crew looked up, their faces etched with determination and hope. "Attention all hands," Arya said, her voice ringing out across the ship. "We have been given a rare and precious gift. The lost planet has shown us the consequences of our actions, but it has also given us a chance to make things right. We must not let this opportunity slip away. We must fight for a future where life is cherished, where resources are protected, and where hope always endures." The crew erupted into cheers, their voices joining together in a chorus of determination. They knew that the road ahead would be long and difficult, but they also knew that they were not alone. They had each other, and they had the memory of the lost planet to guide them. As the Odyssey raced towards Earth, the echoes of Oblivion grew fainter, replaced by the growing hope of a new dawn. The lost planet had given them a chance, and they would not waste it. They would honor the sacrifices of the past and build a better tomorrow, one step at a time. And so, with hearts full of hope and minds full of purpose, the crew of the Odyssey set forth on a new mission. They would be the vanguard of change, the voices that would awaken humanity to the dangers that lay ahead. They would be the ones to silence the echoes of Oblivion and usher in a new era of hope and prosperity. The journey would not be easy, but they would not falter. They would press forward, guided by the light of a lost civilization and the strength of their own convictions. And in the end, they would emerge victorious. The architects of a new dawn that would shine bright for generations to come. Chapter 7. The Vanguard of Change. As the Odyssey approached Earth, the crew buzzed with anticipation and purpose. The lost planet's message had ignited a fire within them, a burning desire to be the catalysts of change. Captain Aria Vance stood on the bridge, her eyes fixed on the view screen as the blue-green orb of their homeworld grew larger. "Captain, we're being hailed by Starfleet Command," Lieutenant Kai reported from the communications station. Aria nodded, straightening her uniform. On screen, the face of Admiral Thorne appeared, his expression a mix of curiosity and concern. "Captain Vance, we've been eagerly awaiting your report. What have you discovered?" Aria took a deep breath, the weight of her words settling on her shoulders. "Admiral, we have encountered a lost civilization, one that has paid the ultimate price for their mistakes. Their story is a warning, but it is also an opportunity. We must learn from their tragedy and forge a new path for humanity." Admiral Thorne leaned forward, his brow furrowed. "I see. And what do you propose, Captain?" "We need to start a movement, sir. We need to inspire people to change, to cherish our world and its resources. The lost planet's message must be shared, and we must be the ones to lead the way." The Admiral was silent for a moment, considering Aria's words. Then a smile spread across his face. "Captain Vance, you have my full support. The Odyssey and her crew will be the vanguard of change. Together, we will ensure that the lost planet's sacrifice was not in vain." Aria felt a surge of pride and determination. "Thank you, Admiral. We won't let you down." As the transmission ended, Aria turned to her crew, her eyes shining with purpose. "You heard the Admiral. We have our mission. Now, let's get to work." The Odyssey burst into a flurry of activity, each crew member driven by a shared sense of purpose. They reached out to their loved ones, sharing the lost planet's story and urging them to join the cause. They worked with Starfleet Command to develop a plan of action, a roadmap for a brighter future. And as the days turned into weeks, the movement grew. The lost planet's message spread like wildfire, igniting the hearts and minds of people across the galaxy. Governments and organizations pledged their support, and new technologies emerged, designed to protect and preserve the fragile beauty of life. Through it all, the crew of the Odyssey remained at the forefront, leading by example and inspiring others to follow in their footsteps. They faced challenges and setbacks, but they never wavered in their resolve. They knew that the road ahead would be long, but they also knew that they were not alone. And as the echoes of Oblivion faded into memory, a new era dawned, one filled with hope and promise. The lost planet's sacrifice had not been in vain, and the Odyssey crew had been the spark that ignited a revolution. With each passing day, humanity grew stronger, wiser, and more united. They had learned from the mistakes of the past, and they had chosen a different path. And as the stars continued to shine overhead, the crew of the Odyssey knew that their mission would never truly be over. They would always be the vanguard of change, the guardians of hope, and the architects of a brighter tomorrow. Here is Chapter 8 of The Echoes of Oblivion, A Lost Planet's Lament. Chapter 8, The Ripples of Hope. As the movement grew, the crew of the Odyssey found themselves at the center of a galactic transformation. Captain Aria Vance stood before a sea of faces, each one filled with hope and determination. She spoke of the lost planet, of the sacrifices made and the lessons learned. Her words resonated with the crowd, igniting a fire within their hearts. We stand at the precipice of change, Arya declared, her voice carrying across the vast auditorium. The Lost Planet's message is not just a warning, but a call to action. We must be the guardians of our own world, the protectors of life in all its forms. The crowd erupted into applause, their cheers echoing through the halls of power. Among them stood leaders and visionaries, scientists and artists, all united in their commitment to a better future. As Arya stepped down from the stage, she was greeted by a familiar face. Zara, her trusted friend and confidant, embraced her with tears in her eyes. "You did it, Arya. You've inspired them all." Arya smiled, her own eyes glistening with emotion. "We did it, Zara, all of us, together." The ripples of hope spread far beyond the auditorium, touching every corner of the galaxy. On Earth, new initiatives were launched, aimed at preserving the planet's delicate ecosystems and protecting its most vulnerable inhabitants. In the stars, explorers and diplomats carried the message of the lost planet, forging new alliances and spreading the seeds of change. And at the heart of it all, the crew of the Odyssey remained steadfast in their mission. They traveled to distant worlds, sharing their story and learning from the wisdom of other civilizations. They faced challenges and adversity, but they never lost sight of their purpose. As the months turned into years, the echoes of Oblivion grew fainter, replaced by the chorus of hope and unity. The Lost Planet's sacrifice had become a symbol of resilience and a beacon of light in the darkness of space. And through it all, Arya and her crew continued to lead the way, guided by the unwavering belief that a better future was possible. They knew that the road ahead would be long and arduous, but they also knew that they were not alone. They had each other, and they had the support of a galaxy united in purpose. As the Odyssey set course for its next destination, Arya stood on the bridge, her eyes fixed on the stars. She thought of the lost planet, of the lives lost, and the lessons learned. And she knew, with unshakable certainty, that their sacrifice had not been in vain. For in the end, the echoes of Oblivion had given way to the ripples of hope, and the galaxy would never be the same again. Chapter 9. The Uncharted Frontier. With the galaxy united in purpose, the Odyssey ventured into uncharted territories, seeking new worlds and civilizations to share the message of hope and resilience. Captain Arya Vance stood on the bridge, her eyes fixed on the view screen as the ship navigated through the vast expanse of space. "Captain, we're picking up a faint signal from a nearby star system," the communications officer reported, his voice filled with excitement. Arya turned to face him, her brow furrowed in concentration. "Can we decipher it?" "It appears to be a distress call, but the language is unlike anything we've encountered before." "Set a course," Arya ordered, her mind already racing with possibilities. "If there's someone out there in need of help, we must answer the call." As the Odyssey approached the star system, the crew prepared for the unknown. They had faced countless challenges on their journey, but each new encounter brought with it the promise of discovery and the chance to make a difference. The ship entered orbit around a lush, green planet, its surface teeming with life. Arya assembled an away team, and together they beamed down to the surface, ready to face whatever lay ahead. What they found was a civilization on the brink of collapse, torn apart by internal strife and the ravages of a changing climate. The planet's inhabitants, a race of tall, slender beings with luminous eyes, greeted the Odyssey crew with a mix of hope and desperation. "Please," their leader implored, his voice trembling with emotion. "We have heard of your mission, of the lost planet, and the lessons you carry. Can you help us find a way forward?" Arya stepped forward, her heart swelling with compassion. "We will do everything in our power to help you," she promised. "Together, we can find a path to a brighter future." And so, the crew of the Odyssey set to work, sharing their knowledge and resources with the planet's inhabitants. They worked side by side, learning from each other and forging bonds of friendship and understanding. As the days turned into weeks, the planet began to heal. New technologies emerged, designed to harness the power of the planet's natural resources without destroying them. The people came together, united in their determination to build a better world. And through it all, Arya and her crew remained a constant presence, guiding and supporting the planet's inhabitants on their journey to a brighter tomorrow. When the time came for the Odyssey to depart, the planet's leader embraced Arya, tears streaming down his face. "You have given us the greatest gift of all," he said, his voice filled with gratitude. "The gift of hope." Arya smiled, her own eyes glistening with emotion. "It is a gift that we carry with us, wherever we go," she replied. "And it is a gift that we will continue to share for as long as there are those in need." As the Odyssey set course for its next destination, Arya stood on the bridge, her heart filled with a sense of purpose and belonging. She knew that the journey ahead would be long and challenging, but she also knew that they were not alone. For in the vastness of space, the echoes of Oblivion had given way to the ripples of hope, and the uncharted frontier beckoned with the promise of new beginnings and endless possibilities. Chapter 10. The Ripples of Hope. As the Odyssey ventured deeper into uncharted space, the crew carried with them the lessons of the lost planet and the hope they had helped to kindle on the world they had just left behind. The vastness of the unknown stretched out before them, filled with the promise of new discoveries and the potential for even greater challenges. Captain Arya Vance stood on the observation deck, her eyes fixed on the stars that streaked past the viewport. She couldn't help but feel a sense of awe at the beauty and mystery of the universe, even as she knew that their mission was far from over. "Captain," a voice called out from behind her. It was Zara, her trusted friend and advisor. "I've been thinking about what we've accomplished so far, the ripples of hope that we've sent out into the galaxy." Arya turned to face her, a smile playing at the corners of her lips. "It's incredible, isn't it, to think that a single story, a single message, could have such a profound impact on so many lives." Zara nodded, her own eyes shining with the same sense of purpose that Arya felt. "And yet, there's still so much more to do. So many more worlds to explore, so many more people to help." "You're right," Arya agreed, her voice growing more determined. "We can't stop now, not when there are still those who need us." As if on cue, the ship's intercom crackled to life. "Captain to the bridge. We're picking up a signal from a nearby system." Arya and Zara exchanged a glance before hurrying to the bridge, their hearts racing with anticipation. When they arrived, the crew was already hard at work, analyzing the signal and trying to determine its origin. "What have we got?" Arya asked, taking her seat in the captain's chair. "It's a distress call," the communications officer replied, his brow furrowed in concentration. "But it's not like anything we've encountered before. The language is completely unfamiliar." Arya leaned forward, her mind already racing with possibilities. "Can we decipher it?" "Working on it now, Captain," the officer replied, his fingers flying over the console. As the minutes ticked by, the tension on the bridge grew. Arya could feel the weight of responsibility settling on her shoulders, the knowledge that every decision she made could mean the difference between life and death for those they encountered. Finally, the officer looked up, his face a mask of concern. "Captain, I think you need to hear this." He tapped a button on the console, and a voice filled the bridge, speaking in a language that none of them had ever heard before. But even without understanding the words, Arya could sense the desperation in the speaker's tone, the fear and the hopelessness that seemed to permeate every syllable. "Can we translate it?" she asked, her voice tight with emotion. "I think so," the officer replied, his fingers already working to decipher the message. "It seems to be a plea for help. They're saying that their world is dying, that they've exhausted all of their resources, and that they have nowhere else to turn." Arya felt a chill run down her spine, the echoes of the Lost Planet story ringing in her ears. She knew all too well the devastation that could be wrought by a world that had squandered its resources, the suffering that could be inflicted on those who were left behind. "Set a course," she ordered, her voice steady and determined. "We have to help them." As the Odyssey raced towards the system, Arya could feel the ripples of hope spreading out before them, the promise of a better tomorrow for those who had lost all hope. And she knew, with a certainty that went beyond words, that this was what they had been called to do. For in the vastness of space, the echoes of Oblivion had given way to the ripples of hope, and the crew of the Odyssey would be there to carry them forward, no matter the cost. Chapter 11. The Dying World. As the Odyssey raced towards the distressed planet, Captain Arya Vance couldn't shake the feeling of déjà vu. The desperate plea for help, the dying world, and the echoes of the Lost Planet's story all seemed to converge in this moment. She knew that the decisions made in the coming hours would have far-reaching consequences, not just for the inhabitants of this world, but for the ripples of hope they had been spreading throughout the galaxy. The bridge was a flurry of activity as the crew prepared for the challenges ahead. The communications officer worked tirelessly to decipher more of the alien language, hoping to glean any information that could help them better understand the situation on the ground. Meanwhile, the science team analyzed the data streaming in from the planet's surface, painting a grim picture of a world on the brink of collapse. As they approached the planet, Arya could see the scars of a civilization in its death throes. Great cities lay in ruins, their once mighty structures crumbling under the weight of neglect and decay. The landscape was a barren wasteland, stripped of the vibrant life that had once thrived there. It was a sobering sight, and Arya felt the weight of responsibility pressing down on her shoulders. "Captain, I'm picking up a signal from the surface," the communications officer reported, his voice tense with urgency. "It's weak, but I think I can enhance it." Arya nodded, leaning forward in her chair as the static-filled transmission filled the bridge. The voice that emerged was thin and reedy, the words halting and filled with despair. "Please, if anyone can hear us, we need help. Our world is dying, and we have nowhere else to turn. We've exhausted all of our resources, and our people are suffering. Please, if you have any compassion, any hope to offer, we beg of you." The transmission cut off abruptly, leaving a heavy silence in its wake. Arya could feel the eyes of her crew upon her, waiting for her decision. She knew that they were all thinking of the lost planet, of the sacrifices that had been made, and the lessons that had been learned. "We're not going to let them down," Arya said, her voice steady and determined. "We'll do everything in our power to help them, just as we've helped so many others. But we have to be smart about it. We can't just rush in without a plan." Zara nodded, stepping forward to stand beside her captain. "Agreed. We need to assess the situation on the ground, determine what resources we can offer, and work with the inhabitants to find a sustainable solution." Arya turned to her crew, her eyes shining with the same determination that had carried them through so many challenges before. "All right, everyone. Let's get to work. I want teams ready to beam down to the surface as soon as we're in range. We'll need medical personnel, engineers, and scientists, and I want a full analysis of the planet's environment and resources." As the crew hurried to carry out her orders, Arya felt a sense of purpose settling over her. This was what they had trained for, what they had dedicated their lives to. They were the bearers of hope, the guardians of the future. And they would stop at nothing to ensure that the ripples they had sent out into the galaxy would continue to spread, bringing light to even the darkest of places. As the Odyssey entered orbit around the dying world, Arya could feel the eyes of the universe upon them. And she knew, with a certainty that went beyond words, that they would not let them down. For in the face of Oblivion, the ripples of hope would always endure. Chapter 12. The Ripples of Hope. As the away teams prepared to beam down to the surface of the dying world, Captain Arya Vance stood on the transporter pad, her eyes filled with a mixture of determination and compassion. She knew that the task ahead would not be easy, but she also knew that they could not turn their backs on those who needed them most. "Remember," she said, addressing the assembled crew members, "we are here to offer hope and support. We may not have all the answers, but we have the will to make a difference. Let's show them that they are not alone." With a nod to the transporter chief, Arya and her team materialized on the planet's surface, taking in the desolate landscape that stretched out before them. The air was thick with the acrid smell of decay, and the once great cities lay in ruins, their towering spires reduced to rubble. As they made their way through the wreckage, they were greeted by a small group of survivors, their faces etched with the lines of hardship and despair. Arya stepped forward, extending her hand in greeting. "I am Captain Arya Vance of the Starship Odyssey," she said, her voice calm and reassuring. "We received your distress call and have come to offer our assistance." The leader of the group, An elderly woman with piercing blue eyes stepped forward, her voice trembling with emotion. "We had almost given up hope," she said, tears streaming down her face. "We thought we were alone in the universe, doomed to die with our world." Arya placed a comforting hand on the woman's shoulder, looking deep into her eyes. "You are not alone," she said, her voice filled with conviction. "We are here to help you in any way we can. Together, we will find a way to save your world and your people." As the away teams set to work, assessing the planet's resources and working with the inhabitants to develop a plan of action, Arya couldn't help but feel a sense of pride in her crew. They were the best of the best, dedicated to the ideals of hope and unity that had carried them through so many challenges before. Back on the Odyssey, Zara and the rest of the crew worked tirelessly to support the efforts on the ground. They analyzed data, ran simulations, and collaborated with the away teams to find the most effective solutions. It was a race against time, but they refused to give up, knowing that every moment counted. Days turned into weeks as they labored to heal the dying world. New technologies were developed, ancient wisdom was rediscovered, and the inhabitants of the planet began to see a glimmer of hope on the horizon. Slowly but surely, the planet began to recover, its barren lands turning green once more. As the Odyssey prepared to depart, the leader of the planet's survivors came to Arya, her eyes shining with gratitude. "You have given us more than just a chance at survival," she said, her voice filled with emotion. "You have given us hope, and that is a gift we will never forget." Arya smiled, taking the woman's hand in her own. "It is a gift that we will continue to share," she said, her voice filled with the same conviction that had carried them through so many trials before. "For as long as there are those in need, we will be there to offer hope and support." As the Odyssey set course for its next destination, Arya stood on the bridge, looking out at the stars that stretched out before them. She knew that the road ahead would not be easy, that there would be challenges and setbacks along the way. But she also knew that as long as they held fast to the ripples of hope, as long as they continued to stand together in the face of adversity, there was nothing they could not achieve. And so, the Odyssey ventured forth, ready to face the uncharted frontier and bring the light of hope to all who needed it most. For in the end, it was the ripples of hope that would endure, long after the echoes of Oblivion had faded into the depths of space.